Hello and welcome to this InfoReady webinar. Today we join Shannon Marshall, Program Manager and Admissions Coordinator at MICHR, the University of Michigan's Institute for Clinical and Health Research. Over the next hour, we'll hear Shannon discuss how MICHR manages processes associated with clinical and translational research. These include processes supporting the Institute's Clinical and Translational Science Awards program. Shannon automates and streamlines these activities using InfoReady Review, a platform for managing internal research grants and limited submissions. So join us now as our webinar is about to begin.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Carlos Moncada, Director of Client Services at InfoReady. Thanks for taking the time to join us for today's Peer Spotlight webinar. Our guest panelist today is Shannon Marshall from the Michigan Institute for Clinical and Health Research, MICHR for short, at the University of Michigan. Shannon is the program manager for several programs associated with clinical translational research at MICHR. And today, Shannon is going to be discussing a wide range of topics, including the CTSA grants, how MICHR supports research and scholars, and also how her unit uses InfoReady Review to help manage these various processes, including with the reviews. So now that we've covered the logistics, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you so much for having me again today for your Peer Spotlight. As Carlos said, my name is Shannon Marshall, and I am the Admissions and Program Manager for MICHR, the Michigan Institute for Clinical and Health Research at the University of Michigan. I'm working from home today, so if you happen to hear my dog in the background, I apologize. She is sequestered to her own area, but knows that I'm still around, so. A little bit about myself. I have been with the University of Michigan since January 2001, and I've spent about 20 years in student services and admissions. I started out in the Department of Neurology and Research Finance, and then moved along to my passion in life, which is student services at the School of Natural Resources. I then spent a few years at each of the following locations: the Political Science Department and LS&A, and then the Ross School of Business Admissions Office. And there I was responsible for helping to process all of the incoming Bachelor of Business Administration applications, as well as the MS in accounting. And then I was also assigned some MBA applications as well. Overall, I managed about 600 applications per admission cycle. Now that training really prepared me for what MICHR had in store for me. And in 2010, I moved over to them. MICHR was a fairly new institute at the time, and my position was brand new. Needless to say, it has grown quite a lot over the last 10 years. My personal education background is in earth science and history, and I also received an MS in administration, all from Central Michigan University. It's there that I did fall in love with student services, as I was very involved on campus in student government, res life, and new student orientations. I knew then at that moment that I really just this was my path. I always say that it takes a special person to be a teacher, and I think it also takes a special person to want to be in student services their whole life. So next slide, Carlos. So for today's InfoReady presentation, what we're going to cover is who and what is MICHR and what is a CTSA grant. How does MICHR support scholars at the University of Michigan? How does InfoReady help us manage all of these programs? And then we're going to dive in to our postdoctoral programs review process in the second half of the presentation. Next. So here we are, MICHR, yay! We were founded to enable and enhance clinical and translational research across the University of Michigan. We educate, fund, connect, and support research teams across the spectrum, from social work to engineering and medicine. We are the bridge between basic and clinical research. Next slide. As I stated before, MISHAR was founded in 2006, and in 2007, we were awarded a CTSA grant from the NIH. That is a Clinical Translational Science Award from the National Institute of Health. The CTSA exists to accelerate research. It is designed to develop innovative solutions that will improve the efficiency for turning observations in the lab, clinic, or community into interventions that improve the health of individuals and the public. Next. As you can see, Michigan is part of a 60-plus consortium of universities across the US. Chances are some of you are on the call today are from an institution that has a CTSA grant. At Michigan, we call our institute MISHAR. Your university might use the acronym CTSI, which stands for Clinical Translational Science Institute. I encourage you all to go ahead and Google while we're chatting the name of your institution and then CTSA or CTSI after it and see if anything comes up. Next. So you may be asking yourself, what is translational research and why do I care? Translational science is the act of turning scientific observations from the lab, clinic, or community into interventions that improve health. When it comes down to it, it's just research. And the NIH has given resources to over 60 institutions across the US to help promote research development in young scientists. Our scholars are able to take their own discoveries, partner with others, and move their discoveries into testing and application into the public. This is really important because without these programs, health research and advances would take even longer than they already do. Next. So at MISHAR, we have 4 areas of focus: to educate, fund, connect, and support the researchers at our institution. Now remember, this is campus-wide, so social scientists, engineers, medicine, everything. The core that I work for is the education core. We support training programs for graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, early career faculty, and research staff. Our funding arm provides opportunities for pilot grants. These are small grants that help faculty gather basic data so that they can apply for larger federal grants. Our Connect arm is all about engaging with the community and assisting researchers at our institution to recruit volunteers for their clinical studies. Remember when you signed up to do research to make a few dollars? That is what this group does. They help connect researchers with volunteers. Our final support arm has become a great resource across campus. Between grant consultations, grant editing, project management, biostatistical support, and regulatory support, this team never stops. One of our teams works with the FDA to get emergency approval for doctors to use experimental drugs or devices on our sickest of patients at the University of Michigan. These guys are pretty cool. Next. So, MISHAR education. As I previously mentioned, I arrived at MISHAR in 2010. At this time, all of the applications for our education programs were all still on paper. I know, crazy, right? PDFs, Word docs, delivered hard copies, mailed letters of rec. This was causing a lot of issues with application accessibility and data transfer issues because applications had to be manually entered across multiple platforms. This left a lot of room for errors as we have a lot of data collection needs for the federal government as well as the university. So upon my arrival, I immediately moved all programs over to Google Forms. I could now collect the bio demo data electronically, and I could move and share information across our platforms easier. But we still had this piecemeal issue. PDFs of applications needed to be emailed to us. I had to gather, build, compile, and distribute all these pieces manually for our review process. To give you a feeling for what we're dealing with, let's go to the next slide for a breakdown on all of our education programs. So we have 4 programs I'm going to talk about real quick. Our first is our KL2 program. The KL2 program is for early career faculty who are MDs or PhDs that see patients. That means they need protected time away from their clinical duties in order to do their research and career development. A KL2 is a career development grant from the NIH that MISHAR holds. We then run an application process to appoint scholars to this grant. If you're an early career faculty member, you could apply for your own K as well through the NIH, and that would be something like a K23, a K08, or a K99. It's okay if some of this sounds really foreign to you, because it took me like 3 years to wrap my head around this myself. So feel free to Google any of these terms at any time. For our KL2 program, we generally receive anywhere between 10 and 20 applications a year for 4 to 9 funded spots. The second postdoctoral program that we run is the Postdoctoral Translational Scholars Program, or PTSP. These are PhD fellows who are working in a fellowship to obtain additional training before the next steps in their career. Next steps could be employment in academia, industry, or possibly another fellowship. For the PTSP program, we generally receive around 30 to 50 applications a year for 11 to 14 funded spots. Our MS in clinical research is for college students in an MS or higher. These students are generally medical, pharmacy, or dental students who are taking a year out of their primary program to seek additional education and training because they know they are interested in a career for research, either in academia or industry. We generally receive 15 to 20 applications a year for 9 funded spots. And then the last program that we run is our summer immersions program. These are college students in an MS program, generally from the School of Public Health, pharmacy, social work, medicine, engineering, etc., who think they might be interested in research being a part of their career, maybe. So they apply to and enroll in this summer immersions program. Some of our scholars use it to fill an internship credit, others, but everyone receives and research and work experience for the summer. Generally, we receive anywhere between 30 and 40 applications a year for 20 spots. One year we received over 80, and that was a real fun time, let me tell you. Next slide. So since 2006, MISHAR Education has funded and trained over 500 scholars across this research spectrum, from public health master's degree students trying to figure out if a career in research is right for them, to our KL2 faculty who are taking time to work on their own research to prepare for the next steps in their young careers. I did Freudian slip factory because I guess faculty are a factory of research and grants and whatnot in their careers. So today I'm going to go ahead and talk about how MISHAR uses InfoReady to collect and manage the applications of our 2 postdoctoral fellowship programs. Next slide. So as you can see, running and managing all of our programs is 2 full-time jobs, but there's only one Shannon. So when the Michigan's Office of Research partnered with InfoReady, we jumped on board right away. We were considered early super users, and in the 2015-2016 application cycles, we collected and processed and reviewed over 129 applications electronically, all through InfoReady. Today, we utilize InfoReady not only for our program admissions processes, but also for a campus-wide Mentor Award Program. And we utilize it for a lottery drawing for SOCRA and ACRP certification training. Our office was so successful with switching our processes to InfoReady that other areas of MISHAR now utilize the platform for various reasons. Maybe someday our other coworkers will do a peer presentation too. Next slide. So after all of this, how does InfoReady help us? It helps us by streamlining our admissions and review processes. It acts as a one-stop shop for both of our applications and program websites. It allows us to electronically collect all application information in one place. This includes the grant submissions, letters of recommendations, etc. And we're no longer missing emails with important items attached to it, and that's really important to us. We also are able to review all submissions electronically. No more downloading, bundling, rebuilding of materials to third-party sites like Canvas, Blackboard, Box, etc. We can electronically double check and assign applications right to our reviewers, which is really great. And finally, our collection of feedback and review scores are also now electronic, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Next slide. So before we proceed, I wanted to see if there were any questions so far. We are going to dive a little deeper into our review process for our postdoc programs. So if you have questions about that, you can save that for the next half.
No questions thus far.
All right.
But please do submit questions as you think of them. Go ahead, Shannon.
All right. So today, Carlos and InfoReady have specifically asked me to go ahead and describe our review process for our postdoctoral programs. So let's see how we do that. For our KL2 and PTSP processes, applications are collected through InfoReady, and they are in the format of a K-23, which is an NIH Career Development Grant. Our KL2 and PTSP programs are career development programs. So the K-23 is a perfect model to have our scholars complete applications for. We have them submit their applications in this form because it's a teaching opportunity for them. Because if they're going to be on a road of research for their career, it is a must that they are successful at writing a grant. And these award amounts are around $100,000. Once materials are submitted through InfoReady, I do a personal materials check. If the application is complete, they move automatically on to round one, our initial review process. If they're incomplete, we do have a little mercy and give them a few days to get missing items in. Predominantly, these are letters of recommendation, but once in a while, I will stumble across someone who made a large error and either omitted an entire section or wrote their research development plan too long. If that's the case, I do consult our directors and they decide if this person gets additional time or not, or if they're disqualified. We do allow them a little bit of leeway. The NIH would not do this, and we do remind them of that process. So next slide. So our review process is a three-phase process, or routing steps if you're using InfoReady. We have our initial review by our faculty lead, and they approve or deny each application, all electronically through InfoReady. And then we move to our scientific review process, or for round two. Each application is assigned 2 scientific reviewers that complete a questionnaire in InfoReady and submit scores to us through. And then the final decision is made by a MISHAR review committee of 5 to 6 faculty members. Next. So for our scientific review process, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, Shannon, how do you recruit so many people for all of these applications? Well, let me tell you, it's not as easy as it sounds, or it might sound to you. For many years, we actually struggled with this. And recently, we started asking our applicants to include a list of potential faculty who might be able to review and rank their submissions on scientific merit. Our faculty directors will also add to that list during their initial review process. And then I embark on a massive email campaign to recruit a minimum of 2 scientific researchers for each application. Next. So conflicts of interest, as you can imagine, because Michigan is such a collaborative environment, it is impossible to recruit scientific experts for our applicants that don't have some sort of conflict of interest. So we do have kind of an unofficial tiered phase of, is this conflict okay? Is this conflict not okay? So we do allow some conflicts, but not direct conflicts of interest. And we always ask our reviewers to give the most professional and unbiased objective review as they can possible. Next slide. So for some examples of conflicts of interest that we do allow scientific reviewers to have heard of the scholar, but they haven't worked directly with them, or they've worked directly with their mentor, but not directly with the scholar. Conflicts of interest that are not okay are, I've collaborated directly with this student in the past, and I don't feel comfortable reviewing their application. And one that is new to us this year is that if this person is awarded, my department will financially benefit from this award. So the expert we asked in that example, they were a scientific expert, and based on the title of the project, they stated that they didn't feel comfortable reviewing it because if it was awarded, they would directly benefit from that. So we all agreed, and they recused themselves from the review process. Overall, we generally have to email about 4 to 6 scientific experts to get 2 to volunteer. Sometimes we have an applicant whose research is so specialized and the community is so small and niche at U of M that we've had to ask 10 or more faculty before we can find the minimum 2 to review for them. Next slide. So our scientific reviewers volunteer their time to read and review these application and grant proposals. The bulk of the grant is generally 7 to 10 pages, which includes their research proposal and career development plans. Most applications in total are around 30 to 60 pages, depending on if it's the PTSP or KL2 program. Some of our KL2 applications will get to be over 100 pages with all the supporting materials that they need to include with it. So as you can imagine, this can be quite the task to collect, assemble, and distribute, which is why we are so thankful that Michigan has their partnership with InfoReady. So in InfoReady, our scientific reviewers are able to access the letters of recommendation as well as the grant application submissions all in one location. And then their scores are also submitted electronically through InfoReady. We utilize the standard NIH review guidelines for the K23 awards and rank each section on a scale of 1 to 9. Those are very easy to find if you are interested in that. You literally just have to Google NIH K23 review guidelines and you'll get a ton of links. In addition to these particular standard questions, we also ask a few of our own that we have found are really helpful over the years. Is this proposed project translational in nature? Will the project lead to future research or future funding? Would you award this project? Yes, no, with modifications. These are really important questions that help us guide our final panel of faculty reviewers in our discussion. Once our scores are submitted through InfoReady, I am able to pull all the data out of InfoReady into an Excel sheet. I can also pull down PDFs of all their responses for distribution to our final review panel. Being able to download these scores electronically is really instrumental in helping us decide who was reviewed in person versus who was dismissed from the process. This also allows us the ability to perform a mail merge and distribute the information to our faculty reviewers as we see fit. Next slide. The review panel. So our final and third review round is what we call a review session or a study section. And this includes 5 to 6 faculty members, myself, and our faculty directors. We use this NIH term study section because it's a frame of reference for the faculty reviewers that are participating in the project. As an active service to their scientific community, most faculty members belong to some sort of national level study section or review panel. And so when we approach them to be a reviewer for our programs, we do like to use terms that they are familiar with so that they can automatically puts into a frame of reference what the time commitment is and the expectations are for our review processes. Our final committee has access to read all of the scientific reviews that were submitted in the previous round, and we do keep these anonymous to avoid as much bias as possible. And then they are able to also read, of course, the application itself as well as the letters of recommendation. We then have our final group of faculty answer 2 simple questions themselves regarding the submission. What is the overall score or impact of this grant? And would you fund it? Yes, no, with modifications. Our faculty reviewers can, of course, submit these scores through InfoReady. I prefer that, but we also give them the opportunity to just bring those scores with them to the in-person review session. Next slide. So the MISHAR study section, we meet as a group to discuss who to admit at this point. Generally in the past, of course, it's been in person, locked down in some sort of conference room for 2 to 3 hours. This year will be the first time that we attempt to do this all electronically through Zoom. Our top scorers will get a brief review and approval for admission by the committee. Our bottom scores will not get reviewed or discussed at all. And we will spend the bulk of our time in that meeting talking about the middle scores, the maybes, because these are the applications that have a lot of really great scientific merit, but might have some serious design flaws or issues with their applications. Next slide. So our study section is really also what cements this as a holistic review process. All parts of the application are considered, and in the study section, we generally specifically tend to discuss the research proposed itself. Is it doable in 2 years? Does the scope of the project fit the program goals? We also look heavily at the career development plan. This is a career development application or program, so our scholars must have a scientific component as well as a career development component. So what do they hope to learn and accomplish in these particular 2 years? How do they hope to build up their soft skills or even their hard skills in order to advance their careers to the next step? We also look at the strength of the mentoring team. Will their primary mentor actually have the time to mentor them and be an asset to their professional and scientific development? You'd be surprised how that is discussed sometimes. We also ask if this proposal will move the scientific field forward. Does it have potential to add to the scientific landscape of whatever their grant is discussing? Or is this proposal looking at some sort of problem that's already been solved or proven? A great example from a really robust discussion we had of a project is one from a scholar who was studying the rate of pollen and allergies in urban areas. The MISHAR reviewer, this is our step 3 reviewer, was not convinced that this was a study that we should be funding, or that it was a study that would move allergy science forward. Because we all know pollens cause allergies, so who cares? Why are we even reading this study? Well, the program director and I had read the study, and we saw the value in it because the student was not simply looking at the rate of pollen in urban areas. They were specifically looking at the pollen of low-cost trees that are planted in urban areas in beautification projects. They wanted to prove not only that these cheap trees directly increase the rates of asthma and allergies in urban communities, but they also wanted to prove that the local pollen counter was unreliable as it was located far outside of city center, away from where the majority of the population was living. So it's because of the robust review process that we have that this project was actually ultimately funded. So the in-person review committee is as instrumental to helping us make our admissions decisions as the paper scientific process is. Next slide. It's time to award grants. Woo! So our awardees are chosen at the study section, though our faculty directors do maintain the right to change any decisions that they think. They normally do not. I really don't think of any time in the last 10 years that our faculty leads have not agreed with the committee and their decisions. The reviewer comments that were gathered through InfoReady are included in the feedback to the applicants. We also will add additional comments from the in-person study section as well. Now for the award letters, we do choose to manually send them outside of the InfoReady system. We know we could use InfoReady, but we prefer a more hands-on approach to allow for the personalization that might be needed for each letter. For example, a scholar might have a off-cycle start date, or they might be required to submit a rebuttal or address concerns from the review committee before we can issue them a final letter. This is all done through email and mail merge, and our scholars accept their offer manually via email directly back to me. Next slide. So that is our review process in a nutshell. And you may be asking yourself, Shannon, why are you doing such an intense process? If you have faculty directors and a healthy set of applications, how come you and your faculty director just don't choose who you want to fund? And I literally ask myself that every year. But we use this NIH review process so that our scholars and trainees learn what type of process they're going to go through in the future when they are applying for their own federal grants. Surprise! It's a learning opportunity. This also allows us to set up our application and review process to allow the scholars to get feedback from scientific reviewers who are experts within their field. And these experts are experts in their field, but they might not be people that they work directly with. So it allows them to receive feedback from a person outside of their current research bubble. And this feedback can be very instrumental when they submit additional grants and are learning how to write grants in this process. And then this also allows our scholars to get their ideas in front of faculty that might not be in their field. So our final review panel, they're not scientifically specific to the applications we're reading. They are senior faculty who, for lack of a better term, know a good grant when they see one. And so allowing our students to go through this process lets them connect with other faculty and network with people that they might not have met to begin with. So that is it for me. We can go to the next slide, Carlos. And at this time, I am happy to answer any questions you have regarding our programs or our review process.
Thanks, Shannon, for sharing all that great information about the operations at MISHAR and the education unit within MISHAR and really all your processes. Getting into the nitty-gritty of the review process, I think, is really helpful. That's where it's really where the action happens, where the big decisions are made. So getting that right is important. I think sharing your process there is really helpful. So with that said, we have some questions that have been submitted. Let's jump in.
Great.
So the first question here asks whether, are you blinding the application materials, the scientific reviews, or both?
The only thing that we blind are the names of the scientific reviewers to the third tier faculty. And then when the scholars get their feedback returned to them, they do not know who wrote that feedback. So that particular process is blinded. But other than that, nothing is blinded within the grant submission itself.
This is a follow-up question for me. Can the applicants see the reference letters?
I do allow them to see them if they want to. A lot of actually, that's a really great question. Most of the time, our applicants, we assume, are going to be involved in their letter writing process to begin with. We do require 2 letters of recommendation to accompany each application, in addition to letters of support from their mentors and mentoring team. And at this stage of a person's career, and it's very different from when you're getting letters of rec from undergrad or a master's degree. The applicants tend to be very involved in that letter writing process, providing notes and feedback to the writer so that they write them a really great letter. So if an applicant has not seen the letter, we believe in transparency for the applicants, and so we will allow them to see them, of course.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that's always a contentious point.
Yeah, it tends to be, if I can be a little frank and honest, it tends to be in the undergrad world of admissions. It's very taboo to see and be involved in that letter writing process. But as you progress through your careers and schooling, it actually tends to be more common than not that the applicant is actually involved heavily in the letter writing process. So I always find it interesting myself.
So we have a question here about measuring the outcomes of all of these programs. Do you use the progress reports and infrared review, or do you have some other process or operation in place to measure outcomes to see how you did?
Yes, we do have a few other things to help measure outcomes. One, I think the kind of the jewel in our crown for both of these postdoctoral programs, at least, is we require them to have IDPs, individual development plans or individual career plans, and they meet with a committee of mentors at least 3 to 4 times a year. And this committee, we call it their MISHAR mentoring team. It's their primary mentor and themselves, and then we assign them a MISHAR mentor. And the MISHAR mentor is someone within our MISHAR stable of faculty who are into career development and mentoring. So these are faculty, like, this is their jam. They love helping young scientists develop and find their niche within their own careers and scientific fields. And so that person acts as a third party advisor for them. the MISHAR mentor really has the scholar's interest at heart and in their mind, and can act as a buffer or intermediary person between conflicts of interest between the scholar and their primary mentors. As both of these particular programs are PTSP and K programs, are career development programs, we buy time away from their primary duties so that they can focus on this particular project and their career development, so they can promote and move on from the university into other jobs or promote within the university. And so these MISHAR mentor team meetings is a way for us to measure outcomes. And then we have a few other program requirements that we have them do. But I would say that the number one thing that helps us really measure if the scholar is being successful or not is actually that personal connection that they have and form with their MISHAR mentor, which can be a little bit hard to put into numbers for reports, but the verbal feedback that we've received from our scholars has just been like, they love that part of the program. They love having someone who's an unbiased champion for them. And they use them, and we really encourage them to go to them when there's conflict and whatnot on their teams.
Thanks, Shannon, for going into detail on that part. It's mentorship is such an important part of, you know, academic and success and collaboration and research. So the fact that you have that program in place is, I'm sure, very welcome to those individuals.
Yeah, and the reason, a lot of reasons why both of these programs exist as well is almost because of that. Because up until now, as a student, you're always doing someone else's research. As an undergrad, you're just trying to bust your butt and work on any types of research projects that you can. And then when you go get a master's degree or a PhD, the best way to get into those programs is to connect with another faculty member who's doing the research you think you want to do for the rest of your life. So you're always working on their programs and projects. And then you get those degrees and you try to move on to do your own research, except now you have a fellowship and your research interests still have to match with another PI who you're going to do work for. So sometimes these two programs might be some of the first opportunities our scholars have to really do what they want to do and really do what they want to focus on. And we feel like we've just had tremendous success with it. And both programs have existed for well over 10 years at this point. So from commitment from the University of Michigan for our PTSP program, and then federal commitment from the government for our KL2 program.
So the program's been around for a decade. How much does it change from year to year? And so in info-ready review, how do you go about changing?
So as far as our admissions process goes, that doesn't change too much and hasn't in the last handful of years since we've been using InfoReady. If we have any changes, we are able to adjust directly within the platform to handle those changes. And when I say changes, I mean, it's going to be the questions we ask, the biodemo data we might need to collect at the application level. And then because we have them submit a PDF for the bulk of their application, of course, we can change whatever we need to in those instructions because they're just going to upload one complete document into InfoReady. And so your platform really allows a lot of flexibility for the needs of our programs. And we're able to very easily pivot and change the requirements and questions as needed. I will say being able to always have saved some sort of template was a blessing in the first years, but now I can copy an application. And I love that. I can just copy last year's application over to the next year, because, you know, all those fine-tuned questions and issues, you know, were worked out last year, and now we might just have to tweak them for this year.
Glad to hear it. It's been easy to do that. So, you know, you spoke a lot about the review process, and there's a couple questions about that as well. One relates to the huge effort going into recruiting reviewers. So the question was, have you considered, or what have the efforts been to create a standing review committee?
That we would love to create some sort of standing review committee. And for our third step, we kind of have done that for our in-person meeting, our 5 to 6 faculty members. We do have some, you know, we call them program champions who just really love both these programs. And so we do have a small stable of faculty that we ask to be on that review program, that review panel every year. For the scientific review process, though, that's a little harder because we never know what applications are going to come in until they come in. We have attempted to ask for letters of intent so we can try to start working ahead of time on that, but not all those applications ever come in. So sometimes we more often than not just wait until the applications come in and then look and see who the scholars have recommended for review, and then do our own searches and make connections. We do keep track of who has reviewed for us through the years, so I can always reach out to those faculty and encourage them to review for us again. Faculty commitment also changes yearly. And so some faculty will turn me down 5 years in a row, and then they'll be like, you know, they'll say, ask me next year. I would love to do it, but I just can't right now. Or I'm overcommitted for the next 4 years. Please ask me later. So, which is great because that means they're, you know, they're really vested in this type of program and process at Michigan. And they've taken the time to read my emails to ask them to be part of it. So we have, long answer long, we have thought about having a standard set of reviewers, but have not developed one yet. And it, I believe, is simply because it's unpredictable what applications will be coming in. And we want to make sure that at least for the scientific review process that each applicant has the best and most qualified person we can find to read and review that and give an opinion on it.
Well, thanks for that in-depth answer. I have some feedback for you actually about the reviewers on the panel in step 3. You may want to consider using the committee routing steps at some point in the future. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about that, Shannon.
Okay.
So, you know, you spoke a few times about collaboration and all the different groups you work with. Could you do you have like point people in the other units that you personally collaborate with, like other program managers, or how does that process work?
Well, for my personal processes and whatnot, I've been at the U of M for almost 20 years and have been in this arena of admissions and student services. So I definitely do reach out to my own peers if I need advice or help on anything. One thing that's cool that we've done is for our summer program, which I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the talk today, we actually have created a summer program collaborative group on campus. And so we have reached out to all the different departments and programs that have a summer program. And we've formed a quite a large kind of committee group to come together to discuss quite frequently, actually once a month. I think actually we meet every other week to discuss our processes, what's working well, what's not working well, how can we do things better. And so that particular committee is going very well as far as helping not only MISHAR, but we're able to help each other with those particular summer programs. For the postdoc programs, I don't really have a set of peers I reach out to for that. I can collaborate with, of course, our peers across the CTSIs on the national level. And we do meet once a year at a national convention, a national convention where all of our scholars present. And then we do have monthly career development meetings with each other as well. So we're always trying to share and disseminate best practices amongst each other, nationally as well as locally at U of M. Did that answer the question?
I think so. That was very thorough.
Yeah. As far as our scholars go, Michigan, U of M is really into team science and collaborating with people outside of your normal area of expertise. And so that MISHAR really loves helping our scholars make those connections. And so if we ever have anyone who's like, oh, Shannon, I'm lost, I don't know who to reach out to, I just simply tell them, send me who you're trying to find and we will help you find them. And the faculty that work for MISHAR are really well connected and know a lot of people. And it tends to be very easy for us to help our scholars make the connections they need to make to be successful.
Great. And how do you promote these opportunities?
We do just kind of an extensive email campaign. So I have my own set of people that I reach out to, personnel such as myself who run programs, finance directors across the university, and then our faculty, reach out to major faculty lists, associate deans of research and whatnot across the university. And so between the faculty and myself, we each kind of have our own little list of people to contact to help promote it. And then U of M's Office of Research also does a really great job promoting all current opportunities through our InfoReady site. And so they'll send out bi-weekly emails as well to the scientific community at U of M. And if we have an application up and ready that's almost due, like they will show up in those emails. So for example, our MISHAR K is due in less than a month. And so that opportunity will continue to show up in their emails for the next few weeks. But our PTSP isn't due till February, so that will take a little longer to get out there. So we do a lot of emailing, campaigning, and whatnot. We also have done what I call road shows in the past as well. Not doing them too much right now, but we will definitely hold information sessions, especially for the PTSP program. Because that program is geared towards postdoctoral fellows, we literally can fund anyone who's a postdoctoral fellow across the university, as I mentioned, from social sciences to engineering and whatnot. And so we do try to hold a few info sessions for them. And then we've also done some targeted marketing as well. We will call departments and ask them if we can come visit them and present to them about our programs. Because we did a lot of that the first few years MISHAR was around. Because we've been around for well over 10 years now, people just kind of know that these opportunities exist, and they actually reach out to us as well now. Hey, Shannon, can you come talk to our fellows about your programs? Of course, we would love to come. And our scholars, our alumni are major champions and cheerleaders for us as well. And so we do rely on word of mouth as well to help promote the programs. I do have scholars who I have a one of my master's in clinical research students is just finishing up his neurosurgery residency at U of M, and that's like an 8-year residency. And he has sent me at least 4 or 5 other scholars since he's been in his residency program to our MSCR program. So word of mouth, of course, is always critical when it comes to having a successful program and whatnot.
Oh, you've got quite a network built up.
I think it also helps that I've also been a steady person in this position as well. So when you're able to create and hold such relationships with your scholars, they remember you and they love you and all the help that you gave them. So that helps. It helps I'm a nice person that they like.
Stability is very helpful for sure.
Yes, yes.
Got one last question here, and then we'll close it out.
Great.
The question with this question, they're asking if you've used the multi-track competition functionality in the system.
I have not used the multi-track competition system in InfoReady, so I'll have to look into that.
So, for a little context, multi-track allows you to create a gating question up front, and then each answer has its own track where you can customize the application form,
Okay.
routing steps, notifications, and progress reports. So I think the question came from you're working with various groups from different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm actually going to write that down because we might need that this year for our summer program.
Yeah, you can definitely, you'll be able to tailor it to the different audiences who would be applying. So the person who asked that question, the answer is no. But maybe in the future. All right, we're almost at the top of the hour here. Thanks so much, Shannon, for your time today.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yes, very special thank you to you. Always great having administrators be able to share their story and offer insights into how their processes are managed. Also, thank you for everyone who called in today. I know September is a busy month, so thank you for joining the webinar. Shannon provided her contact details. They're displayed here on screen. So if you have some questions related to what she's doing at MISHAR, shoot her an email. You can also contact us as well. And then I mentioned the webinar was recorded, so we'll be editing and posting this on our website. I think Shannon had some special thanks for some of her colleagues at MISHAR.
Yep, just to my colleagues who helped me put this together. So thank you to Brenda, Leanne, Nicole, and Christy. Yep.
It takes a village, right?
Sure does.
The next webinar is going to be kind of a change of pace. It'll be at the end of October, on October 27th. We're going to be going over a Cayuse integration with InfoReady Review. We're actually working on that right now. We've partnered together to build a series of integrations. So the webinar is going to be providing an overview of what those plans are, information on when the integration will be available, and also how to get that set up. So if you're curious about that, definitely sign up for the webinar or email us to let us know if you have any questions about it. Once you exit the webinar, you'll get a survey pop up. It'd be so great if you could use that to submit additional questions and feedback. And then if you have any questions about how your institution can use InfoReady Review, feel free to contact my colleague Max Dinerman. or if you have questions about your existing license or some of the functionality involved in it, reach out to me. And then for any technical questions, definitely reach out to the support team at support@InfoReadyCorp.com. So with that, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so
And
much.
you have a great week and stay safe.